Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, giving us the end game video for the Divine Ire Stormfire Ignite Elementalist. Now, at this stage, the character has taken on 2 or 3 Uber Elders, 3 or 4, something like that, and it is a very smooth playstyle for the Uber Elder fight once you can get enough damage, and at my stage of the character, the damage is definitely there. All it takes is one 20 stack wind up of Divine Ire, which, depending on where you're positioned, how close to enemies are, could take a little while to wind up, and that may be the most uncomfortable thing about the entire build, but if you get that 20 stack off, you will be pushing each phase just about every single time, as you'll see later in this video. So for Uber Elder and for most of the endgame Guardian fights and endgame bosses, it's a pretty nice playstyle, and the ignite damage can definitely be there to just phase lots of these bosses. It's just up to getting your 20 stack ignite up against each enemy individually that you need to hit. So as you can see against this boss, for example, you get the 20 stack going on the first one. You then kind of struggle to get your 20 stack going against a couple of the others, especially if you get stunned here or there. But in most situations and most bosses, it's really not too much of a problem to get your actual big ignite up. The biggest problem against some of the bosses were obviously the Nexus ones that have just some ridiculously crazy mods, like lots of extra damage, attack speeds, areas, avoiding ailments like my actual ignite. So there is a lot of cancer out there for this type of build, and it's not going to be a huge face roll, especially against those types of fights, but it can definitely be built into a very nice character for the usual end game, because I had just about no problems against any of that, including Uber Siri and some deep delving too. Got down to my deepest delves, which is like 330, something like that, and it is just a little bit annoying having to try and avoid the corpse exploding dudes. Like in this sort of instance, you can see there's going to be plenty of corpse exploding dudes. You just can't really stand on top of them since we don't deal with corpses at all, except for the devouring diadem, but that's nowhere near reliable enough to actually prevent dying to those sorts of things. So it's just a bit of a fast playstyle in Delve, but it is very smooth for Delve, given that your laser beam shoots down a nice column, nice line, and it will obliterate everything in its path, and the damage for a Delve situation is way more than overkill. You don't need anywhere near this much for Delve. The damage only really starts to ever feel kind of slower for these really endgame bosses, but for actual generic clear, you have way more than enough damage, and a lot of the time it just looks like you straight one-shot things, when in actual fact you're burning things over time very, very quickly. So delving was definitely some of the highlight for this type of build for Divine Ire Ignite, and that green Prolif Ignite from the Cinder Swallow Flask is a nice little change of pace for the usual clusterfuck of red and purple and all that. Takes a little bit of getting used to, and maybe you don't like it all that much, but it is nice for a change, I think. And of course, you could just not use a Cinder Swallow Flask, which would be terrible, especially as an Elementalist, but certainly a choice you could always make. There is a Trickster version of the build that would definitely work out rather nicely too, and I'll show you that in just a second, but I can't actually fully commit to giving you that as a build because I didn't really play it, now did I? And I'll talk about that in a second. But you can see that even for Nexus, for a lot of these Nexus rooms, it was very good for clear. The biggest problem is chain enemies, because if you have golems, well, you chain off of them, so make sure you grab the chain immune Pantheon if you're going to be doing a lot of Nexusing. Boss here, for example, a very fast attacking Hydra, lots of dodging, but one burn is usually all it really takes every few seconds, and then you focus on your dodging. All of these tier 16 Elder Guardians only take one burn, and then you run around for the duration of the phase. It's just about getting that 20 stack off, and if you're up closer to the enemy, you will get your charge up quicker, as is the sort of mechanic from Divine Ire. If you're going to be attacking the enemy, charging up, then you charge it up a bit quicker, and my cast speed really isn't that fast, so it does charge up a little slower, I feel, than my, for example, Inquisitor. If you're a Trickster, you'd probably charge up a lot faster too, but I don't think you'd have anywhere near the same current DPS, because the shock portion of the Elementalist tree is actually pretty profuse at this point. It's like 40% increased damage from shock. So I don't think the Tricksters are going to get the same damage. I think they will just map a lot better, and I think they will probably be a bit more survivable. But if you want pure big dick damage, it's probably the Elementalist. So I will give you a Trickster path of building and tree, and I've done my best to sort of just change my current tree to be a Trickster one without actually changing any fundamentals of the build except for the ascendancy. I cannot really endorse this. If you want to try it, by all means try it, but this is supposed to be the exact same version with still life base, still a lot of energy shield and Eldritch Battery off of the Devouring Diadem. I'm not so sure how it will actually go because I haven't played it, and that is a very large reason fundamentally as to why I never respec characters and just start slapping gear around, because I think leveling and the actual process of creating the character goes a long way in seeing what you need, how it feels, and what changes you've got to make. So I will give you this one, and currently it's just taking the damage over time nodes and then all of the energy shield nodes over here, which should make you a good bit tankier. You do have a bit less life than my current Elementalist version though, but you have a lot more energy shield and a much better way of getting it back. The actual way I would possibly build this if I was going to go straight from scratch and try and make a Trickster version is quite possibly taking Swift Killer and also Weave the Arcane, dropping some of the reservation I'm currently doing from the Heralds most likely, and quite likely doing actual mana reservation, or a little bit of mind over matter and mana buffing, I mean to say, and not using the Devouring Diadem at all. That's quite likely how I would do it, because I think that's usually a more comfortable playstyle, but by all means you can try out this exact version if you're going a Trickster with the Escape Artist and all of that. And as you can see, the DPS is still pretty good, about 770 without finishing off the jewels and stuff, so it's probably about 850 ignite damage. However, if you look at my current exact, Elementalist, I have 930 at the moment ignite, and that's not factoring in the shock. So if you factor in most of the shock, it should be something like that, and that's going to be quite a bit more damage. But of course, as I mentioned, it's probably going to be less speed, because there's nothing really terribly fast about this, and also slightly less tanky, but there should be a much more fluid sort of damage against the bosses, and I think it's entirely up to you which one you make, but I don't see anything wrong with the Elementalist, but certainly there's potential for a Trickster to be tankier and faster. In any case, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll leave you with one of my Uber Elder kills. Maybe the third or fourth one, not necessarily the very first one, but here you go. Thank you, and see you. Is he gonna die? Almost. Didn't quite get one-tapped from the first beam. Bit of a dick move there, Shaper. I thought we agreed that you'd get one-tapped. Any chance I could never pop that ball? I don't think there is. Not on this character. Because I really don't want to have to interact with the ball mechanics. I can try, but yeah, this is not going well. This is going even less well. Golems look like they're taking some damage for some reason. wasted my flask charges. Ah, fuck! I wasn't watching the ball. I was fixated on what Elder was doing. I just wasted my flasks again. Yeah, that could have been a ballless run. Instead I went full balls. Fuck. Yeah, playstyle was really good there. Oh, the Triple Hatred Watcher's Eye, as promised. Here it is, Triple Hatred. Malevolence, cold over time, clarity, clarity. Hey, that could be something. That could be a certified something. Clarity max and cold? Is that maybe, possibly, even likely? Billions of dollars? I like it. Mirror tier? Vortex Occultus? Do those guys still exist? Are they a real build? Cold damage over time. Clarity. Max mana as extra, yes. 75 exalts. Did somebody say multiple 75 exalt sales tab? And mine has the mana thing, which maybe is useful. This one has discipline hit as well, which I don't know if that matters. Probably the same level of semi-useful but mostly useless thing. Because the mana cost clarity, I don't think that's going to be useful in that build at all. But it's not bad. $75 billion exalts. Offline? Oh, okay, I guess. 14, but he's obviously scamming. 16, he's a scammer. 20, that's a scammer. 28, he's getting closer, but I reckon he's a scammer. 30, he does have a nice early weakness with purity, so that might be legit. That guy's a scammer. So yeah, 75. Alright, what's just the clarity then? Let's have a look. 6.9 just by itself? Oh, I'm so fucking rich. And what if it's got the clarity mod as well? What if we're just looking for double clarity randomly? 30 exalts just for double clarity? Dude, this thing is actually... Alright, hold on. Let me run the math here. 30 times 75. Oh my god. This thing is worth 2,250 exalts. That's insane. Well, there you go. I said it was going to be a Triple Hatred Watcher's Eye. It just came in a different form. Nice.